before we do that, to my audience, if you've been enjoying this content so far, well, great, fantastic. I'm really happy for you. We do this all the time. We have content like this on this channel 6 nights a week. We're always here, always here. And so if you've been enjoying this, hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. We do this 6 nights a week, so don't want you to miss out on any more of that content. Exclamation point social and chat. For more of our social media, we have Twitter, where we tweet stuff, right? We have Discord, heart and soul of the community. Everything happens on Discord, right? We have offline conversations. We have online conversations like you're seeing here, right? But everything happens on Discord. We want you to be a part of that. So consider joining the Discord community. And YouTube is where you find the VODs. If you missed anything, right? If you come in late, missed anything, thought this was a really interesting topic, well, then you'll find that on YouTube. So like, comment, subscribe, and consider becoming a YouTube member. Hitting that join button, supporting the channel that way as well. Okay, thank you. So we're going to continue on to our next thing. And
Wait, before you do that, hey chat, if you're enjoying this and you like what Prime is bringing, feel free, if you got the opportunity to give a few bits here and there, maybe a sub or something, because Prime puts in a lot of work for this stuff, and organizing panels and getting panels together is not an easy thing. And I also want to give a special shout out to Katie for really working hard to put this whole thing together, because again, very thankless job. So if people can give a quick shout out, if people can give a quick thank you to Katie, that'd be great.
I'll do it. Thank you, Katie. Thanks, Katie, for everything. Seriously, she was a real trooper, and this would not be here if she didn't reach out, make it happen, and then yell at me continuously. That part's important. If she didn't do that part, then we definitely would have done it. So, okay, let's go to our next topic. In the West, sex is by default looked on as harmful, even when it is done between consenting adults in private. There can be a sense that something wrong or shameful is happening. This is especially true for women. Some people say that women can't engage in sex without emotions, and if they attempt it, they are committing some level of self-harm that will eventually traumatize them. Does this sentiment hold any weight? Do most women actually require that sense of connection? If so, can women engage in sex work in a way that doesn't traumatize them? Will that industry, in all its many forms, always just use women up until they have no value left? All right. And Cyrus, we just read the second question, so we're on that. Just so you know. Okay, we'll do opening statements. I'll start with our friend Zonia.
I'm guessing that very last sentence about used up their the value is that intentionally provocative?
I didn't know how to end it. That's I I actually had
this
a
came
lot of
from
trouble.
your head?
Just to tell you, this topic wasn't necessarily my idea. Katie and I came up with it together. But I had to create the prompt, and I had a lot of trouble with this, a lot of trouble putting this together, and I was just like the sentence that came to mind. I don't know. So there you go. There's nothing behind it.
Well, it's really funny because there's this sort of cultural sort of not understanding, but like this trope that has existed for a long time, that virginity is so valuable, and the more sex that a woman is having, the less valuable she is, and crap like that. So when I saw that sentence, I was like, holy crap, this is very provocative. But I think that it is this one's a tough one for me to even speak on, because my sexual experience is very little, and I don't really know exactly what to say about it. I think that there's this. It's hard for me to speak on, but I think it's kind of silly to think that sex can only be engaged with as an emotional thing for women. And I know plenty of women who I would refer to as like players, right? And are having, they have a lot of fun getting with many different men, in particular, for the straight women that I know. And I don't I don't understand why that would be harmful or why that would have to be tethered to emotion. So in the claim about sex work somehow then being harmful to women because of women being tied sexually having their sexuality tied to something of emotion seems like a really kind of I don't know. It seems like a shallow take that's based on some pretty dumb stereotypes, in my opinion. I can't speak a lot on this until other people kind of open it up for me a little bit more due to my lack of sexual experience. So I'm going to let others kind of
Sure.
initiate this one and I'll build off of what they say.
Thanks so much.
If I can jump in and
No,
just give
oh, we're
we're
just going
going,
down. Yeah, we're going around.
okay,
Yeah, don't worry.
not an
Pixel.
open discussion yet.
Pixel, please.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I've had so much sex all the time, especially during the pandemic, so I can speak on this very well, clearly. No, I just want to make it very clear that how much sex a woman has nothing to do with her value. Value and purity culture is something that has been entrenched by the patriarchy in order to oppress women and control women, and slut shaming women especially is something that is used to control women. On kind of the other areas of this specific topic, I do think that women can engage in sex and behaviors without emotional attachment, but I do think that women have been socialized to think that sex equals emotional attachment and intimacy. And I also think that men have been socialized to think that sex equals intimacy as well. And there's like issues there that we need to establish within what I would hope is a more sexually educated, free culture, as I think that is really important as we move into the future. I also think that those who engage in sex work can do so without being harmed. I think that people will engage in sex work no matter what happens. I think there are a lot of people who enjoy being perceived in that way or the attention that they get from that way, and I don't think there is anything wrong with that. Obviously, there are lots of little bits and pieces that are difficult to navigate around that conversation specifically. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think understanding that women can be sexual beings, and especially sexual beings as well as respected beings, like understanding that women are more than just objects, more than just property. Breaking down conversations around sex is really important to that in society. So that's probably my opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you. Probably. You're not sure? Are you you still working on it?
I'm just doing that thing that women do where I just soften my points at the end because otherwise, we get in trouble. I can't say anything too authoritatively or I'll get in trouble.
Okay. All right.
know?
And well, the moment you put your foot down with a period, it threatens me as a man.
Exactly. It's a big issue. All right.
Cypress. Or sorry, excuse me.
Really, like, the hottest take I think I'm gonna have on this issue is that there are a lot of people in general who are unwilling to recognize that they have more of an emotional attachment when it comes to sex than some others. Some people just aren't cut out for like the casual dating, like Tinder sex culture. I guess that's what I'll call it. I'm married. I've been monogamous for quite a while, so I'm not like in it, but I see it all the time. I think that this is pretty common. I tried to actually look up like some studies. I didn't find any personally that tied like the different hormones, estrogen versus testosterone, to somebody's like emotional connection during sex. But what I did find was like attachment styles, and certain people are they have different attachments to other people. They have different social needs, and now that like the Tinder sex culture is what's common, there might be like a little too much shame related to not sleeping with people, not only wanting to be monogamous, things like that.
Thank you. Let's go to. Oh, I guess we'll continue going clockwise. Sorry, Katie. Pro
Muted.
streamer. Wow, just
We can't
like
hear you.
amazing points. Coming from Katie. Katie, you're muted.
You're muted.
Muted.
Okay. All right, we'll continue on. All right, there you go.
Fine. Boo.
The
Okay.
most elegant I've ever heard you. Go ahead.
I will make the voice.
Okay, sorry, never mind.
Okay. Exclamation mark. Okay. I have hot takes on this a little bit. I think at the end of the day, when I talk about sex work, it comes down to the opinion of who I'm talking to about if there is a real distinction between sexual engagement and any other type of physical engagement, like in the way that we separate sexual assault from just like physical assault, and how most people seem to treat those things as like fundamentally different. And I think depending on the answer and the exploration of that type of framework, you reach different conclusions. So I think if engaging sexually is inherently different than like using your body for construction, then the answer would vary massively. And I have my own opinions on that, but I feel like the panel is going to go slightly in a different direction. So I'm going to let it do that. And if somebody wants to engage, then we'll do that as well. I also know Lana is going to kick ass now. So I'm going to give her a lot of space before I get hurt. So there you go.
All right, I have a bunch to fucking say on this topic. All right.
Please.
So, I just want to start off by saying, so the other day I actually went to my OBGYN and she asked me, oh, hey, like, how many sexual partners have you had? And she looked shocked. So we'll start with that. I've had a lot of partners. I've had a lot of sex. I'm poly. And so I don't think that sex has to be inherently like harmful for people, for women in particular. I do think that for me, like the concept that like a woman could just as easily like have a lot of casual sex is a lot harder for men, not necessarily because of like any like chemical reasons, or it honestly comes down to like eventually you're gonna get raped. Because like when you just have like a lot of casual sex, men treat you like you aren't a real person, and so they'll just violate your consent at some point. Like when you have sex with people who don't value you, you're not a wife. They're just gonna like fucking rape you at some point. Like if you like do it enough times, you're just gonna run into an asshole, or you're gonna be drunk, or like something's gonna happen. So like eventually like the concept of like having casual sex just becomes like less attractive like after that happens, especially a couple times, at least in my experience. So like I definitely think like women can have casual sex, but like I think like basically if you decide or want to do that, it just like becomes harder over time, and you end up like eventually converging into like mostly having sex in relationships, because the type of men who keep raping people keep not getting partners, then they keep like making bad decisions and preying on very young women who can't pick up on cues of like what is acceptable behavior. And then I secondly wanted to say that I don't think that casual sex has to be more likely self-harm for women than men, but I acknowledge that like you can definitely have sex that is like self-harm for sure, but I think that's like for you and like maybe your therapist to kind of decide. I'm also bipolar, so I'm very aware of like hypersexuality, and like I've definitely met people who like use sex as self-harm. I've maybe had periods where that's been a thing, but I wouldn't say it's like a huge problem in my life. But I think that definitely can occur, but I don't think it's like more likely for women or something like that. I've definitely met men who have sex as self-harm. Pickup artists totally fall into that category. They have sex to degrade their version of what other people are. It's so fucked up. Okay, and then thirdly, so I'm a stripper. So a lot of people who are sex workers on Twitch are mostly like cam people. They mostly do like camming, like online work. I'm a stripper. I've been a stripper for about like almost 3 years, and I love it. And so I have a lot of comments on sex work. We can get more into it later. about like my views on sex work, but for the most part, like I do want to dismiss, like I don't think sex work is empowering for women. I don't think it's inherently harmful either. I think it totally depends on the context, like why you're doing it. And I want to say really briefly, like there's a difference between trafficking, survival sex work, and like sex work that you're basically doing completely consensually. So.
Okay. Interesting. Love to hear it. Thank you so much. Zealous. You might be muted, buddy. Zealous.
What?
Pain.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. So there is definitely a stigma on sex when it comes to women. Like, you have too much sex, you're a slut, like, you know, things like that, that I do think are harmful and problematic. To whether or not women can engage in sex without emotions, I think that I don't think anyone can really engage in sex without emotions, but I think men do less, definitely, than women. I think that women are more sensitive to developing feelings when sex is involved, simply just because of biology. So, like, when you have sex, your body, I don't know if it's produces or releases what's called oxytocin, which is called the love hormone, and women are more sensitive to it and have higher levels of it. So it's like, I don't think you can engage in sex without emotions. Do I think that women can engage in sex that is self-harming? Yes. Do I think that sex work, if women can engage in sex work in a way that's not self-harming, I think that, I don't know. To me, I feel like sex work is something that's been around since the beginning of time. Like, there's always been women, you know, selling themselves, you know, selling their sexual nature, and you know, there's men who don't have men who have their reasons for seeking out their services and things like that. I don't know if they can engage in it without it. That's not in a way that's self-harming, because I don't know what leads you there to want to do sex work. I was reading a study about how most prostitutes have been sexually assaulted as a child. So, like, I don't know if there are things that go into wanting to do sex work that are like subconscious things that you kind of like normalize, like how we were talking earlier about how you've had things happen to you that you don't recognize as trauma, and I think you can internalize that. And yeah, that's essentially what I think.
Thank you so much, Zealous. All right, Shay.
I don't really think that sex in and of itself is really harmful. And I don't think, me personally, I cannot really enjoy sex if I am not emotionally engaged, if I do not feel some kind of intimacy for the person that I'm doing stuff with. But I also wanted to mention, I thought it was really funny whenever Zonia mentioned it, like the little bit of the problematicness at the very end. And I just thought it was interesting because it does kind of presuppose that sex work can affect a woman's inherent value. And I think that in and of itself is kind of sort of the problem. Because I personally think sex work should be legal. I think it should be legalized and it should be regulated in a way where women, it's not as easy to victimize women or men in that situation. Because I feel like when it is criminalized, you sort of drive it underground. You sort of, because like what Lana was mentioning earlier, there are different types. And if you have to do sex work because it's the only thing you really have access to at that time, anything else isn't going to provide for you in the way that you need, definitely, like, I don't think it's fair, right? And I also think I remember reading an article and it was talking about how when it comes to men and women who are entering into a relationship or entering into sex, they want the intimacy before, or not necessarily the intimacy, but that emotional connection, that desire to sort of lead into sex, whereas men kind of see the point of sex being the emotional connection. Like that is where the connection sort of starts. And I don't know if anyone here can relate, but once you sort of, for me, whenever I have sex with someone, or especially men, like they open up a lot more. It's a lot easier for them to sort of talk about the way they feel and be more open about it. And ultimately, I think, and this is anecdotal, but I think a lot of women just want to be desired, right? So like kind of what she was mentioning, or I can't remember, it might have been Katie or Cyrus who mentioned it earlier. Men might not, women aren't as invested, or maybe don't pay as much as attentive to men during intercourse. And I think it comes from a place of, during intercourse, women kind of want to be desired or worshipped in a way. And like, I've always kind of vibed with that, so.
Thank you. And finally, April.
Yeah, I want to say that sex work can be traumatizing, and sex work is traumatizing for a lot of people who do it. But the thing is that like all work can be traumatizing for people, and there's a lot of different ways to do sex work that's going to be easier or harder to do. So it's really hard to generalize in general for something as broad and varied as sex work. If you're doing sex work, if you're camming and you need to do it to like pay bills, that kind of stress is going to have emotional toll. And I know that like camming is like, it's not as brutal as like, you know, doing in real life sex work a lot of times, but it's still really difficult for people, right? So even on like the easier end, you're in your room, you're like not worried about being assaulted, it can still be really hard for people. So, I mean, that's one level. I think that also when we talk about like sex and women engaging in casual sex, there is like a strongman version of the argument for why it can be a little bit dangerous. And that's like, first of all, it is, you know, physically dangerous for people. You know, as was discussed earlier in the panel, like there's a lot of people who will engage in rape or sexual assault if you have a lot of sex as a woman. But moreover, I think that a lot of times if you are a woman and you're having a lot of sex in your 20s, that's when you have like a lot of high sexual market value, and you have like the easiest chance of finding a partner who's going to settle down with you long term. But with guys, it's sort of the opposite, where guys develop like more sexual appeal to women later in life. So I think there's like sort of a mismatch here, where when women are choosing to really go out there and have a lot of sex and look for those sorts of relationships, they're often disappointed with the men they find in their age bracket who are not wanting to have relationships with them because they're just wanting to have lots and lots of sex. And this idea that like, you know, it's totally fine, you know, as long as two people consent is like so ostensibly true. But there's also this like problematic social factor where men will have lots of sex in their 20s and then they'll get older they'll, get a good career, they'll have money, and then they'll just like find a younger woman to partner off with. And it leaves a lot of women feeling something to be desired if they get older and realize that they spent their whole 20s, having lots of casual sex, but never actually settling down with someone. And now all the guys their age are going for younger women. I think that can be like pretty frustrating. So there's like a lot of dangers on all sides that are not necessarily visible when you're getting into sex, whether that be sex work or just casual sex. So it can be dangerous. Whether like it's inherently dangerous, I would definitely have problems with that, because like it's rare to find actions that are like inherently always going to have negative effects. But yeah, it can be bad, and we need to be like honest with ourselves about the realistic chance of people having good or bad experiences.
Open to the panel.
That's all.
So it's painted that, well, I guess the question kind of comes down to is sex, so it's sort of framed like, is sex innately harmful, and therefore are things like casual sex or sex work doing harm to the person engaging in it? And I think that it's based on the premise that women are emotionally or need an emotional connection in order to engage in sex and to enjoy sex. And I think that would be an interesting thing to kind of pick apart, is that there, like, one person has stated here that they definitely have that kind of situation going for themselves. I know for me, I speak from a very different perspective, being asexual, having never enjoyed sex and not interested in ever doing it again. I come from a very different perspective, but I would think that it would just not make sense to claim that women innately need an emotional attachment to enjoy sex.
Yeah, anytime you say that like this gender innately needs this or always has this preference across all the millions of people, billions of people who are that gender, I think you get into like murky territory. Like there's always going to be exceptions. Maybe women on average want more of an emotional attachment to men. And part of that is just like, I think it's again like the times that women are having sex, especially like high school, college, are times when like women want a specific thing. Women might want a relationship, and guys are just not ready for that. And I think that's like where a lot of this sense comes from women. When women say that like no guy wants an emotional attachment, or like women want emotional attachment so much more than men, I think it's just like the time and place when people are having sex. Because if you get older into your 30s and 40s, a lot of guys are looking for that emotional attachment. They are looking to settle down. But yeah, there's just like, I think there's a lot of times a mismatch when men and women come to the point where they're ready for that long-term attachment.
I just think that we have to have a conversation about how women aren't even allowed to like enjoy sex socially. Like women aren't allowed to ask for good sex in like a lot of conversations. So that plays into it as well, because women are kind of put in this situation where I feel like emotional attachment is kind of prioritized, because for so long socially women haven't been able to address like concerns about bad sex with men ever, because of the risk of violence, because of men not being able to take criticism because of toxic masculinity. So conversations around women and femme people having sex have to involve the fact that we have never been in a position to actually ask for good sex. And so that kind of clouds so many of the interactions that women have with their partners, especially in like hookup and dating culture that we see now. Like a lot of women, it's kind of retaliatory how they are engaging in dating culture now. Because for a long time, women saw men out playing the field, out spreading their seed. This was all very normal, like, discourse to be happening, while they weren't offered the same privilege. Now that women are offered the same privilege, I feel like there are those who go out and do that, thinking it will give them some sort of satisfaction, or like they'll be on the same sort of level as men in, I guess, the dating sphere. And I don't know about you guys, but it doesn't really seem like sociologically it's working out that great for anyone. So I just think it's really, really complex when we talk about women engaging in sex, and especially women engaging in good sex, because like casual sex never really ends up that good. And I mean, like, it can, so I've heard, but like, does that add or make sense, sort of?
Yeah, I have three things to quickly interject. Like the comments about like inherent in biology and hormones and serotonin. Yeah, it's all great. Whether biological factors mean that women are more inclined to do X, Z, or Y. I think I hate when people bring that into the conversation, not just about women, about anything. Men are more likely to do this. Young boys are more like. The thing is, as a society, we don't want to restrict anyone. Even if women were more like, wait, April, give me a second. I think you scared me. What I mean is, even if it's true that biologically women need more emotional connection to enjoy sex on average, we wouldn't want to enforce any social rules to like counter for that. We want people to engage however they want to engage. So I don't think like whether someone is biologically inclined to do X or Y is truly relevant in any like reasonable way to a discussion. Another thing that I think is going to matter if you talk like emotions is that I think if you go around and ask each of us what emotional attachment means, you're going to get very different answers. Very different answers. And I think that's crucial, because I don't think what Shay means is what I mean when I say being emotionally attached to someone. I think you can be incredibly intimate with someone you met an hour ago, but that might not be emotional attachment in a way that other people mean it. So I think that's very important to the conversation. And Pixel, what you said was very interesting to me personally. Not so much in the concept of good sex, but how women are like not really socialized to be okay with them wanting sex and them wanting to enjoy sex. Like, I know for me, it's really hard for me like sexually to assert myself in a way that's like, oh yes, I want this. Like, I need the guy to want it because I feel too like ashamed and guilty about wanting it for myself. And that's like internalized socializations in that way. And what you said was very interesting to me in that sense. Although later I disagreed with you a little bit about the sociology thing, but we'll get into it. It's fine.
I know the way I see it is like kind of like what you mentioned, Katie, about like not gatekeeping it, right? But more about, well, I'm trying to remember what you said early on when you first started talking about it. But the like from my perspective is I think everybody should be like, I think it's inappropriate for people to be judging women for pursuing casual sex or pursuing sex work, and it does create this social wall that makes people feel like they're doing the wrong thing, or they're embarrassed, or or they're going to be like slut shamed for being more open about the desire for sex and for wanting good sex and such. So I think that's kind of the thing that really needs to be addressed. In a way, the whole framing of the topic kind of sets a problematic tone in a way. The better question is, why are we judging women who want to pursue sexuality in a more casual way? And how do we address that? How do we prevent that from continuing to be this social wall?
The answer is patriarchy. To that. That is why women get judged for wanting sex, because controlling women's sex has been the way women have been controlled for a very, very long time. It began, in order to make sure that, the bloodline and the inheritance could be passed down to the correct bloodline. And it went on from there, basically. And it's always been used that way to control women. And so that's where slut shaming just comes in all of the time, because it is a woman pushing back against the constraints of society for a lot of it.
Okay, we
I
can
do
go
think
home
there
to
needs to be
patriarchy.
a
Problem
cultural
solved.
force.
Time for some misandry going on here. Let's get the misandry out.
We're waiting for it. We had people.
I might take like a sort of controversial position here, and that's that I think that like there does need to be some sort of cultural force to like actively warn women about the kind of consequences of engaging in casual sex, like what we've talked about on
Particularly
here.
women?
Yeah,
not people?
particularly women.
Why?
Again, this is like what I talked about earlier regarding sexual market value. When like a woman spends her 20s engaging in a lot of casual sex and then gets to be like 30 or 40, a lot of women realize that their dating pool is going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a lot harder to find a guy that's going to work with them and develop that emotional intimacy. Not to say it's impossible, it's just going to be more difficult. And so women like should be aware that this is an effect that happens, and that guys, unfortunately, and like it fucking sucks, but like a lot of guys can get away with engaging in a lot of casual sex when they're younger. And then when they're older and they have more money and their sexual attraction to women has not decreased a ton, you look at like surveys on men and women, and when they find partners of the opposite sex most attractive,
But there's a lot of
unfortunately-
assumptions going into what you're saying, right? We're assuming that all women care about like their market value, that they're all looking for like the social connection, that they're all wanting to be monogamous and end up in a long, like lasting relationship, that
Yeah.
those things are reasonable, or that we should like encourage them.
So to say that
It's
like all women are
reinforcing
this
the
way is
existing
not true,
problem.
right? It's just a matter of like women, I think, would benefit from being aware that like this is an effect that happens.
But women are incredibly aware of it. Aren't we
I
all
don't think
like
so.
incredibly
Not at
aware
all.
of it?
I also think we have to push back against it.
Yeah,
Because
I
like
agree.
it should also be some responsibility of men to realize like there are two types of attractive men, right? There has been like the attractive young man and then the attractive older man. For women in society, we have only ever been perceived as attractive when we're young. Society shits on older women. Older women become invisible. And that is a conversation we should be having about a societal shift rather than like, I don't know, feeling like we're reinforcing it. Like I understand what you're
I
saying,
don't
as
think you
in
can shift it societally though. I think that's just
You-
part
You
of how
can't
men's
sit here
brains
and be
work.
like, basically, like, women in your 30s, you have to care about marriage and having kids and stuff like that, and like
You don't
not
have to.
acknowledge that like people tell you that all literally. Like, if you go back to the 80s, people were saying that then. Like, they were saying, like, oh, make sure... They would literally perpetuate myths about pregnancy to scare women into stop having, like, having casual sex and make sure to get married as young as possible, because you have to be barely 18 for men to fucking be attracted to you because you're almost a child, and that's not weird at all. But the concept that you would want a partner that's actually on your level, that men actually get their emotional shit together and actually try to work on themselves past the concept of like only doing it for a partner. Like, nobody ever wants to talk about the ways that men should improve their behavior to make the dating pool better. It's always women's fault.
I think it's just a strategy. Like women should just be aware of if they want to succeed strategically in the dating market. It's going to be harder if they're doing that when they're older. And like, yeah, that does suck. But like the advice that I give to women is just to be like wary of that.
what is
April, I think
succeeding
what
in the
I'm
dating
thinking of-
market though? Like what is success?
It varies from person to person. So like some people, if they want to settle down and have a family long term, success for them is settling down and having a family long term. If that's not something you're interested in, right? Like you just enjoy casual sex and you want to do that, forever, fine. Like, go for it. Like, there's nothing I think inherently wrong
But
with
do
that.
you want to do that with a man who's not willing to date people his own age?
What? What do you mean?
You're essentially asking women to adjust the way that they engage with casual sex because men are not wanting to be in like true intimate relationships until they're in their 30s, and when they're in their 30s, they don't want to be with people their own age.
Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, again, that like sucks, but like men's preferences, like,
so
I think the average is like 23 with their ideal age, and that like doesn't change very much as they get older.
I can't personally imagine like wanting to do that for myself with the acknowledgement that it's because most men, or the man that I'm like going to be setting myself up for or up with, is not wanting to date people their own age. That's very like strange to me.
Yeah, and this is like another thing. You can definitely find younger guys who are your own age who are wanting to like date and settle down and have that intimacy. And you can find older guys who are in their 30s and 40s who want to date people who are in their 30s and 40s and settle down with them. That's definitely possible. Like, the unfortunate fact is just that it's more difficult.
Okay, Katie.
I'm not gonna lie, I feel like you're giving advice to people who didn't ask for it. Like unironically, like I feel like women. I have actually heard so many times why I shouldn't be having casual sex, why I shouldn't be doing this with my body, why I should be having a regular partner, why I should be monogamous, why I should wear this kind of makeup and shave my legs and do all these things to make all the moids happy. The ones who like don't respect me as a person, the ones who like don't fucking care about consent, the ones who want to date barely 18-year-olds because they're not emotionally mature enough to like, I don't know, like clean the kitchen or like act like an adult or like follow a real commitment or whatever. But somehow like I'm supposed to change my dating strategy, and like each individual woman has to like coordinate her like life choices to fit the possibility that a man might be into her, instead of men just not having shitty standards. If you're talking about labor, right? I'm just gonna like move this away and then bring it back. Like if you're talking about labor and you're like, man, like it sucks that people are not paying you $15 an hour. You don't go, well, you just keep taking the shitty wage and maybe you'll get a raise in a couple years. You like form a fucking union. And you all do the thing that you actually want to do in hopes that you'll find some sort of compromise. But if you like, if we as women keep perpetuating the myth that we have to continually give in to the shitty patriarchal demands that like men in concept, not even in reality, because men are attracted to like anything, honestly. Like the concept that we should like give in to all of their stupid demands just because like doesn't actually benefit everyone. A lot of men complain that women don't actually like cater to their real desires, which is to be more authentic. Sometimes they're full of shit and sometimes they mean it. And then like women don't actually have a fulfilling relationship because they have to lie about who they are or do things they didn't want to do, and then cheat on the guy that they're dating in their 20s who he's in his 40s and she never actually was really attracted to because she didn't get to fuck when she was like ready to. You know what I mean? Like doing things in concept, trying to please someone that you're not actually interested in, doesn't actually make for better relationships anyway.
Also, if we don't push back against this, then like, I mean, older men are just gonna keep, like, you realize as you get older, these men are just gonna leave you for someone younger over and over again. The cycle continues. So like, if you don't push back against it,
that's why it's good to have like a religion that encourages people to like work through problems in marriages and not just engage in, you know, divorce at the slightest issue.
Wait, you find it more likely that rather than pushing us kind of against the patriarchy, you think that we're going to go back like towards religion?
I think it would be beneficial in many ways, yeah.
Well, so would like
patriarchal religion?
Dismantling the patriarchy. So would that. In this case, at least.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Yeah, you're bursting at the seams.
Sorry, Katie.
April, I forgot you're a conservative. This is where it comes out. I had forgotten. Thank you for reminding me. But please, Katie,
you're welcome, buddy.
So I had something to say for a while. So everything I'm saying is outside the context of you now talking about religion, because I'd have a different argument
move
now
there
that I
next.
know
We'll
that
go there
that's part
next.
of it. So I'm just going to pretend like I didn't hear that part and just gonna do what I was gonna do before. I think that there's like a miscommunication. What I'm hearing, and I feel like a lot of other people are hearing, is that April, you see something that happens in society, and it seems to either be very strongly culturally ingrained or biological, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. And you're saying, look, this is reality. We have to contend with reality. So I'm offering certain like tips. What it sounds to me and why it's triggering for me to hear it, because it kind of sounds like you shouldn't walk around at night with a tank top because you might get raped. And then it's kind of like, well, I feel like it's not my responsibility to make sure people don't rape me. I think they just shouldn't, you know? And I think that's what a lot of people are hearing, and that was why there's like this resistance, because we want you to be like, well, there's this fucked up thing about society and we recognize it and we see it and now we push against it, instead of being like, well, that's how things are, we're just gonna learn to contend with it, you know? Like we're trying to assume change. And I think there was like I thought there was a disconnect in communication there, but then the religion thing came up and I'm not so sure anymore. So I'm gonna let you see what happens with that, and we'll go
Yeah.
from there.
I mean, I think I can like maybe offer a bit of an olive branch here. And that's to say that like a lot of the social dynamics that like cause men to have a lot of power when they get older, and makes them like more able to like go after younger women, are like not good. And so we should like work to make sure that men and women, especially when it comes to like economic success, have like equal access. So women are not like dependent on men when they're, you know, dependent on older men, that sort of thing. The only place that I would push back is I would say that like men being attracted to women in their 20s and women being attracted on average to guys who are a few years older than them, I don't think that's comparable to rape. And I don't think that's something that like we necessarily need to like propagandize out of the population. This
But
seems
it
to
is propagandized into the population.
I would
like you were the
disagree.
But you were the one when we started talking about this, that you're like, we can't make very broad generalizations about groups of like billions of people. So to say that all men are attracted to
I didn't say
people who
all
are
men,
on
I said
average are
on
20.
average.
Okay, on average. But do you think the factors that drive men to mostly seek out very young women or women who are younger than them are not stuff that we can socialize out, that we can change? Or do you just not want to do that?
No, I would say that like with enough propaganda, you could probably get men to pursue women like of their age regardless. But I think they would still be attracted to younger women in their 20s.
But they can be attracted to anyone. First of all, being attracted is not the same as pursuing it, which you made that distinction, and that's fine. My question is, so you're saying with enough propaganda, we can get men to like accept women in their 30s, okay? And that's a bit of like an inflammatory way of like saying
it's
what
very
you said.
Inflammatory, yeah.
I take ownership to that. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit.
It's fine. It's good for the panel.
Yeah. So, but what I'm trying to ask you, and I think what the panel is feeling, or at least what I'm feeling, is that it feels like men looking out for younger women in the way that you're describing is propagandized in, or was propagandized in for like thousands of years. And now it's time to be rid of it. So I guess in the sense that if they brainwash you into X, you'll probably need to brainwash yourself into Y to counter for X. But it's to call one propaganda and one just like a fact of life seems a bit silly to me. So maybe I'm not understanding it.
Well,
So
like
can we just talk about how many people have religious trauma related to sex from religion? Like, that's the weirdest thing to me, because like there are a fuck ton of people out there with some major religious trauma because of what religion has told us about sex, that it is a sin unless it is between a man and a woman in marriage. Do you know how many people have like had their lives like ruined from that sort of rhetoric?
not just that, but also the shame of the naked body, the human body that you're born with, right? So there are layers onto that. Where Christianity really kind of pushes a narrative that you should be ashamed of your nakedness, you should hide it from others, except for the person that you're, intimately involved with, your soul partner, your soul, gender normative partner. And so there are so many layers to religion being a culprit in making people feel shame of their sexuality, their natural human body, etc. Yeah, many layers to that problem.
Can I just say to all the like assholes in the chat who are like literally just talking about like raping women for wearing a tank top, like you need to like chill out and like honestly get some help, because I understand being sexually desperate is like a problem, but like honestly like chill the fuck out. Like I promise it will not help you in the long run. Like get laid. Like just facts. Like work on your like game and then go from there. Like you don't have to like threaten women. I promise it won't get you
Their
more sex.
game is, I see a tank top. She's clearly signaling she wants it. Let's
Yeah.
fucking go.
Yeah, literally.
Time to start bringing out the misandry. I told you we were going to need it before long.
I don't. I'm not
Misandry-
what's happening in chat, but I don't think it's
misandry is
misandry to be
counterintuitive.
upset about rape.
Yeah, it's also
Yeah.
counterintuitive to feminism. Misandry actually is rather problematic within feminism a lot of the time, because we actually need to be able to have these conversations with men in order to be able to progress beyond traditional. It is not like you got yours, so now I'm getting mine. I understand that exists within feminism, but like it's so incredibly counterintuitive to where we want to go as femme people in this world, where hopefully we have a little bit more. You can't fight fire with fire. Like it doesn't work, and it
But
just
sometimes
deepens the
criticism
divide.
of men comes off as misandry. So
Correct.
men
Also,
are very bad at understanding the difference between like just asking them to step up and be like an equal partner and looking for equality. Kind of like what we talked about earlier about how Cyrus said, look, I don't want a partner who's looking to only be into me when I'm 23. Like if I'm 33 and they don't want me, it's like they're not a fucking good partner. Yeah, get the fuck out. And I agree, right? So I think that women, because socialization, everybody talks about how how men infantilize women, but I think we infantilize men. We almost don't expect them to participate. We don't expect them to try to understand, to try to improve, to try to work towards things. Shut up, Prime. I'm gonna bring up race relations into that. It's kind of like how white people are so fucking jaded and don't fucking care about trying to work for like equal racial like relations. It's the same. Like women are not going to change like misogynism and like the patriarchy alone. Guys need to step up to the plate, and we need to ask them to do that, and that's not fucking misogyny. That's just like
Also, like
be a man.
Yeah, and like April, what kind of religion does like help in this situation? Like, I'm actually really interested in your opinion here, because I'm genuinely confused at, I guess, where it comes from and how you think it can fix the situation that women are in regards to sex and long-term partnership.
Yeah, so I think religion has two beneficial aspects here. One is in marriage. So this is like why religion was brought up. A lot of religions will encourage people to stick with their partner and to work through problems if possible. So like Islam is a religion that does this, Judaism as well, Christianity as well, to different degrees. But all of these religions will tell people that, what you should do is you should work with your community, you should talk about problems in your marriage, and you should try to find solutions. I think that sometimes in like modern progressive discourse, the immediate impulse is like you can just like find another person. I think that's a little bit dangerous. So like a little bit more social encouragement and community that's willing to support people through difficult times that you can get through a religion is beneficial. The other way that we talked about, or I maybe implied, was that religion can help people to really center things like family and the building of that kind of prosperous, intimate relationship as something as your goal. And to keep both men and women, thinking about that, I think is maybe beneficial because it can help people to really focus on what's going to be important later in life. And like I said earlier, it can be really difficult for a lot of women to find that as they get older. So having that kind of religious basis that tells them we've got these like centuries, millennia of human experience, ancestors who've come to the conclusion that you're going to find a lot of meaning, or there's a potential that in the future you'll find a lot of meaning in intimacy and long-term, stable relationships with someone. So maybe try to focus on achieving that. And if that's really not working for you, then I would say go do the casual sex thing.
I want to point out that not all people are looking for marriage, and if you are looking for marriage, there are definitely certain strategies you should use, right? Like whatever type of relationship dynamic or whatever type of like lifestyle or whatever you're looking for, you should totally there's going to be advice that's like suited to your specific choices. I do want to point out that not everyone is interested in getting married, not everyone's interested in having kids. I personally think that polyamory is a great solution to having a hard time finding people, because if more people are polyamorous, then you're not exclusive to one partner, so you can have a multitude of people, and if something happens to one person, there's other people there for you, and you don't always need a religious community. And yeah, I definitely disagree a lot, because I have a different goal, but I understand where you're coming from, that if you're religious, that's definitely something that's really helpful. I haven't had great experiences with religion. They slut shame me a lot. They were pretty shitty to me about being bisexual. They definitely told me that I was too outspoken and that I shouldn't act in certain ways. And overall they were just very judgy people, so I haven't had good experiences with religion. I'm sure other people have. I've met other religious people who are not that way. But I just want to point out that's not for everyone for a multitude of reasons, and yeah.
I think you've also got to be careful selecting a religious community that's appropriate for you, because realistically speaking, there's a lot of awful religious communities that are abusive, that are totalitarian, that are cult-like. There are religious communities that are going to try to control your entire sexuality, and that are going to, deeply shame you and abuse you for things you've done. And there are religious communities that are, I think, much more beneficially focused on prosperity and growth, and talking to you about your goals and, where you want to be in the future. I would also say that just to temper things, and again, offer an olive branch. If you're the kind of person who is very adept and capable of having polyamorous relationships, that's not personally me, but lots of people can do that. Great, good. And if you're the kind of person who's very comfortable and able having lots of casual sex, again, that's not necessarily me, but if that's you, good, great, do it. I think that that pathway should be open to you, but there's also benefit in just being a little bit mindful for a lot of people that, when you're younger, sometimes that path of a great deal of casual sex seems very enticing, and a lot of people change their mind when they're older. So I would just be wary of that for some people.
But also, I just.
Okay,
sorry.
Cyrus, I believe you had your hand up. Yeah, and just
that,
for
that
everyone,
answers...
and just for everyone, just to make it easier for me. Let's do alpha palms, right, to the camera, right, so that I can see you. No beta hands here. Alpha palms. All right, go ahead, Cyrus.
All right. Cool, because that kind of gets to answering part of my question, but this is probably not something you have time for here. But how? Because you say you want more economic equality, so women are not so easily taken advantage of, and it's just generally better for society. But how would you go about finding or changing a religion, because like we already have like these large established religions in the United States, you know, particularly 'cause that's where I live, that have these like preset ideals. I mean, they're written down in books. They've been repeated over and over again. They've been changed somewhat slowly. Um, so there's like that. I would want to know like what are your ideas on that, and then one of your like main arguments against like changing the way that men see women and how we like dismantle the patriarchy so that men don't see younger women as like inherently attractive, more attractive than people their own age, was that like you can't make societal changes in that way. And I think moving back to religion is like a way bigger ask to move society towards. I think we're headed away.
Well, I'm not sure. Do you support dismantling the patriarchy? Because now I'm confused. I don't really see any religious like establishment that would actually support like significantly and fundamentally
I actually do know
dismantling.
of one personally,
Really?
just to cut
Is
in.
it Christian?
Yes, Quakerism is weird. The Quakers are largely like very socially progressive. Even like, most of them are probably economically progressive as well, and the vast
Are you a
majority are
Quaker,
Christian.
April?
Am I a Christian?
I don't. I was asking you if you're a Quaker.
If you're a Quaker,
I'm a Quaker. I'm not a Quaker. I'm not a Christian either, or you
Oh.
know,
Okay.
I don't identify with any like main religion.
Do you think is dismantling the patriarchy something you see a benefit in?
I think it's like such a broad statement that I'm not exactly sure what it means. You'd have to like tell me like
fair.
this thing or that thing, just because that can mean like so many different things to different
Okay.
people.
Do women
Using
have a
social
specific
means.
role? Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
just
didn't mean to
repeat that. 'Cause
interrupt.
I didn't hear.
No, go ahead, Pixel. No, it's fine. It's good.
No. Please continue. I really didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was gonna ask if like using social means to try to promote women to go down certain paths that are not necessarily what they want because it's beneficial to society.
What would an example of that be?
An example of that would be like we need to have children, so women should usually be oriented into having children
Yeah, I mean,
because we need
Kind
them
of.
for that.
I would say that like one of the functions of a religious community is that it can help women to see having children as less of a burden, ideally. So like if you are a young woman who is not making a lot of money, having a child can be like a massive economic burden on it could be like a restriction of your freedom in many ways. So there's like a lot of difficulties with having a child that I think ideally if you're forming connections with people and really building community, you'll have people in your life who can work with you to watch the child or to
Yeah,
provide
but what I'm
supplies for
asking
the
is,
child.
is it necessary, or do we want to promote women having children?
I mean, I would say that like having that community does promote women having children, and that's probably a good thing for like the continued existence of humanity.
But also,
Okay.
like, you could also encourage, like, so you're saying, like, oh, it's a big burden for women. You could also, like, promote the concept that, like, men just take on their fair share of the responsibilities in childbearing, which they just
Oh, yeah.
continually refuse to do, and only do most of the time, like, in bad situations, like, because they legally have to pay child support, and they could just help with actual childcare duties instead of just giving a little bit of money, which is basically a fraction of the cost when you actually take into account like opportunity cost, when it comes to the cost to your career for having to make sacrifices for children, when it comes to actually spending that time and doing that labor, the emotional burden, the sacrifices you personally have to make in your household, and all
See,
of that, which men just don't have, like, aren't expected to do currently.
I don't know if it's your opinion, April, so I'm interested on this as well. Do you think women are better suited to rear children than men?
No, I would say that like men and women both have extremely important roles to play in rearing children, and like doing it with only a man or a woman has negative effects, and we see that like in
What
data.
about two women?
Yeah, I think it's all right. I think that the data sort of talks about like father parenting styles and woman parent or like mother parenting styles, and it gets to like you need someone who is a parent of the child who is encouraging them to like telling the child that they're loved and they're accepted and they can like make mistakes and whatnot, and that's considered like a maternal parenting style. And it's beneficial to have that like contrasted with a parenting style that says like, you're totally capable, and like if you fuck up or like fall, you don't need to be coddled necessarily. You can like get up and keep running, and that's called like father parenting style. And having like a variety of parenting styles, basically, where like both parents teach different lessons to the child, is beneficial. So it doesn't necessarily need to be like a man and a woman, but just having like a diversity of virtues that are taught to the child is good.
Okay, so it's not about the gender of the parent, it's about like their parenting style.
I would say
can
so.
agree with that.
And there can be like mixes, right? You can have like a father who does like some like quote unquote maternal parenting style, and that's like appropriate.
So I wanted to try to like rally back a little bit. There's some like when you're opening statements, you guys had so many interesting interesting
Yeah, we got to
happenings.
religion, and that's it.
So
we're stuck now.
I wanted to
on religion.
engage Pixel here. Hi, Pixel. You were talking about like that good like casual sex can't be good sex, or like I don't want to like put words in your mouth. So I want to understand.
No. I'm just saying that a lot of the time when women engage in casual sex, it is very, very difficult to be able to ask for like what you want, because you a lot of times have to navigate somebody else's ego. Like it depends on we're trying to talk about between like what is casual sex and what isn't casual sex, because there's a whole spectrum of like how you can exist along in that area, basically. I'm just saying that I think one of the biggest problems that women have when discussing sex as something that is a part of women's lives and not something that should be just like not talked about because for whatever reasons it's seen as impure or dirty or not womanly or not motherly, right? Is that in a lot of cases and in a lot of marriages, women aren't actually allowed to ask for it to be an enjoyable experience, and that's because of the patriarchy. It is because sex has always been viewed as something that a man does to a woman, and a woman just is happy about it.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense? Whereas like we need to give women more agency in these situations to be able to talk to men about what they might like or how it could be an enjoyable experience for them.
Oh, absolutely.
Can I expand on that?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Absolutely, I agree with you on that point. So maybe I guess I misunderstood what your focus was on, because before it sounded like you just meant like the troubles you were describing just existed in casual sex, and that like if you get to the promised land of like a committed relationship, that these things kind of go away. But clearly that's not what you meant. Okay.
No. You can have great casual sex like if you are able to communicate about what you want, right, beforehand. I'm just saying that a lot of people who engage in casual experiences probably get like a bit of a shitty end of the stick when it comes to it, because a lot of men don't even want to talk about what they're going to do beforehand because it's like not masculine or whatever. Like it's very interesting to navigate all sorts of like sexual dynamics and stuff like that, but I definitely don't think it's a one size fits all situation.
Fair enough. Katie, if you want to say something, and if other people, I want to make sure like Shay, say anything.
Speak.
And you want to go first, Katie, or you want like Shay?
I'm giving Shay my time.
Okay.
All right, yeah, I just wanted to ask the panel a question, and it's pretty much, do you think porn has a relevant impact on how men and women view the connection of sex? Because there was a study that it was more of like an article that I'd read That said, women and men tend to actually consume porn at similar rates, but women are more likely to read porn, whereas men aren't. Men are more likely to watch it. And I think that's really interesting because the media of both of those two really has an interesting dichotomy.
If nobody else does, I have a really I think I have a lot of
Please go ahead.
So, okay, so I think one of the main reasons, I think there's kind of two main reasons why women are more into like written porn. And I think it actually has nothing to do with like the visual aspect. So people will say like, oh, like men are more visual. This is like fucking bullshit. The reality is that like porn is constructed for men. It is made with the male gaze in mind. I've heard like people talk about the male gaze mostly in reference to movies. This is depicted in honestly all different art forms. This is a really popular like feminist critique of movies. This is also true in porn, in my opinion, and I've actually had some like really interesting conversations with people about like what would the female gaze look like in movies. But in porn specifically, it's about viewing women as objects and viewing men as actors. And so I think that women would be a lot more interested in porn mediums that promote the image of like women being the actors, or at least being not even necessarily where they're like the dominant one in a lot of aspects, because you know, most women are submissive, I would say, on average. We can argue whether that's like a societally imposed thing or whatever. That's a whole other conversation. But because of that, there is still a way that women have their own perspective of the events that occur, right? There's still a way that like the story would progress from the woman's perspective that's just very different from the man's perspective. And so because of that, a lot of porn that is like a movie or whatever is produced by men, and a lot of like written porn is produced by women. Like it's written by female authors and with like more female gaze in mind. Actually, like I've also heard so people will sometimes talk about like the problematic ways that gay men are fetishized in that type of porn because they're doing the same thing that men do to women.
Right, and but because there is no woman, it's almost as if there is no sex. Like I've read about that, where women will not, they're more likely to gravitate towards male on male porn simply because there is no woman to objectify, and I think that's really interesting.
Yes, that's a thing. Yes, I actually want to a little bit expand on what Lana said. I was just the other day with someone, and we were on cam together. And I was doing my thing, you know, basically how cam works. And then they were like, hey, you don't really ask me to like take my shirt off, or like, do you want me to lay back and show you stuff and stuff like that? And like that's not really interesting to me. Like I get that that's not what I enjoy. I enjoy looking at your face. I enjoy listening to what you say. I enjoy like the interaction that we're having. If I wanted to stare at dick, there are enough pictures of penises online. It's like it's not really about that for me. That's not what's gonna do it for me. But they are coming from this perspective, like I know what turns me on. I want to see like vagina, or I want to see nipples. So obviously she would want that. So if she's not seeing nipples, she's unhappy. And I'm like, no, you need to listen to me. I know what I like. I'm having fun. It's just not how you think fun happens, and that's okay, you know. So I just think like the male gaze is a really interesting, like it permeates a lot further than just like movies, you know.
I think.
I wish.
Go ahead, Sonia, please go ahead.
This is such a difficult topic for me to chime in on because it's such an alien concept for me altogether. Like anything dealing with sex, well, let me clear one thing up. When I was mentioning misandry before, I was joking around. By the way, I just thought it'd be funny to trigger some people in chat. But I don't understand porn. I don't understand sex. But I do observe a difference in what men tell me about like pornographic experience versus what women tell me. Like Shay, when you were mentioning it's women read more pornography, I was very confused by it because I didn't know what that meant. I was trying to reason that out. The only thing I had heard of were women reading romance novels, which I never once considered to be pornographic.
Oh, but spicy romance
And-
novels, they exist.
Well, I like.
Wait,
I actually
wait,
some of my earliest
I
books.
have a
Taylor
clarifying
Craig.
question. Wait. Are not all romance novels porn? Because I thought they were.
I don't
I don't know.
Erotica.
Like-
they're more like
No.
they're
Are they
like
not?
soft porn. They're more like soft, right? You know.
Okay.
Like,
Continue. I just wanted to add
So-
that because I didn't know.
I actually really
Wait.
like text porn, and I've said this before. I'm a big fan of it, and so there's like a lot more explicit stuff than what you'll get like in a fucking
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
so what confused
also
me
poorly
is
written.
because what
Not
confused
necessarily.
me is that some of my earliest books that I had read were actually romance novels, and I didn't think of them as pornographic. But again, that's kind of coming from my perspective.
How old were you?
It seemed, I think I was 14.
No.
something
Oh,
like
okay. All right. When you said
15.
earliest books, I'm thinking
Well,
like you're
in
6
terms
or
of
7.
well, I didn't get a lot of reading done earlier than that because I spent a lot of time homeless and such, and so it was a slow start for me.
Yeah.
But in terms of like exposure to reading novels full length, right? Romance novels are what I ended up getting access to, reading someone else's books, and they didn't seem to me like they were pornographic in any way. Like they had sexual scenes and stuff, but the scenes themselves didn't seem pornographic. It seemed like very much about like the a lot of like building up to a relationship and building up to like there was so much to the story and stuff, whereas when I think of pornography, I don't think of like a very deep story and much to do with a relationship. So I don't know, maybe just inexperience, but that's what I was kind of thinking. Like I don't know, I didn't know that women consume so much
It
pornography.
it depends on the story. So I'm fan fiction. I'm fan fiction trash.
I
I read and write this stuff. And there's like a big difference between like a 50,000 word, basically a novel, that has like all of the romance and the plot points, and then like some spicy stuff like in there tucked away. Those are their own like whole thing, but there's definitely like written porn, and the thing that I was gonna like bring up, but other people had things to say, was there is actually a difference that I've noticed in the way that men write porn and the way that women write porn. And it's like stuff that you wouldn't really think of. There's like, for whatever reason, there's like more
say it. Come on.
graphic. I would say some of it is like graphically disgusting depictions, like literally like bad smells and stuff. I've seen some of that. I'm not saying it's everywhere, but this is like the more interesting thing. That's more prominent. There's more descriptions of like actual sizes and length, and like the cup sizes,
Or like they search
actual,
for
like,
it, and it's like she had like
heaving
34
bosom.
DD boobs and like
the
14
badly
inch waist.
written
It's like
ones, yes.
Oh no!
I
You're reading like
I
a
had not
stat.
No. Okay. You guys are overplaying
Very
this. No.
confusing.
I'm going to defend porn writers everywhere. No. First of all, like I've read a lot. I've read a lot of these stories, hundreds of them. I'm a huge fan. But like the dirtiest text porn I've read has all been from women. All been from women.
Oh,
Right?
it
Like
depends.
the most, the most
I believe
graphic
that.
and the most in terms of I guess the kinkiness, right? Like the most terrible stuff, right, that I've ever read has been from the minds of women, like by far, not even close. So
I think it
I'm putting out
probably
there.
depends on
And-
the kink. I'm not talking about kink. I'm
But-
talking about like the typical like smells of a person.
Smells.
Right?
I don't know why. I don't know where this is
person
coming
are
from.
not quite pleasant.
I don't.
right?
Listen,
I don't know where this is
if
coming
you
from.
know it's
if
just
somebody
inside guy.
comments on smell, right? if somebody comments on smell, that's a very particular thing.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's a very particular thing.
That is a realm that you either are there or you aren't. Like
with written romance novels, at least the ones that I had read, it is talking about like the like one I'm thinking of, there's like heat in the tent that was causing like the steam to like speckle the upper part of the tent and stuff, and the sweat between their bodies and stuff. And so it's talking about these kinds of things, but I don't know, it just seems very different to me when it comes like from what romance novels describe, at least from my experience, versus what I have seen and heard of the pornography that is consumed primarily by men.
I wanted to say something really quickly. Someone talked about like changing the porn. I forget which one said that, but talking about changing that and like from there changing society. I think that's like a bad idea in terms of like an effective strategy, because one, you can have a few companies that will decide, okay, all of a sudden we'll have equitable porn, whatever that looks like to you, whatever you imagine that to be, right? Equitable porn. Well, and they can do that, and maybe they'll be successful at it, but there's always going to be some other people providing, right, the raunchier stuff. And like it's a medium where people just get to choose, right? So people will choose whatever they want. And it just seems like an easier way to do it, rather than like trying to change like the product, is to just have these conversations like we're trying to have now with other people, right? And
The answer.
have a deeper. Go on.
The answer is giving women agency and allowing women to be perceived with agency, because that will change everything. Sex will no longer be something that is done to women. They are an active participant in these things, including porn, right? It's not just this woman, object of man come on face. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's giving women agency so that the entire conversation can change. Sorry for interrupting.
So you do think...
That was great. That was worth it.
Do you think like equitable porn can be a contributing factor in dismantling these systems? I mean, I kind of like, I almost cringe at this.
I think
I've heard it used so weirdly before, but
I just think that right now, through the patriarchy, there is still a lot of porn that is depicted as abusive towards women. And and to do with kink, I think that there are consensual elements there, and I think that's fine. But there are also like, I think really problematic things. Like what about when the choking trend went around on TikTok, right? And all of these like 19-year-old kids were like pretending they were choking their girlfriends because women love to be choked, or women love to be choked. And that went around on TikTok for ages. And there were like little 19-year-old boys crushing windpipes all over the place because they had no idea what the fuck they were doing, right? Because it had been depicted in porn as something women were like, yes, please, always, right? And I know plenty of women who have been in a situation where someone has gone to do that and they're like, maybe not, or like no, like I know society told you this is something that all women like, but not me. And like there's nothing wrong with liking it. I ain't kink shaming here, by the way. Like no problems with it. I'm just saying there should be less assumptions and more agency for women in general. Does that make sense? Sort of.
Oh, that's always true. Yeah.
I don't know, you just blew my mind by like introducing me to that information.
Sorry.
My mind. No,
Yeah.
It's okay. I just there has to be like some sort of, okay, so like my earliest like I'll just like be totally, fuck it, like I'll just be open now. My earliest like sexual experiences were like freshman, sophomore year of high school, but I like have like this weird brain. I have like some quirks of personality where I can't relate to a lot of the things that you're saying, and I know why. And it's like, it's just like a weird quirk of my personality. But I like went online and like actually looked up like sex therapists and like what information they had. Are these kids like not doing any of that? And like obviously their school isn't. because how could somebody get that in their head that would be okay to just like reach for somebody's windpipe when they haven't asked for it?
Yeah, it's because men are conditioned to think that they have to be dominant in most in sexual situations, right? And so these things are kind of like a part of that. They're like, okay, the internet told me that in order to be an alpha male and attractive to women, I have to be dominant. Now, there are several ways I can engage in this, and one of those is just by pinning her down with my hand. Like, it was a thing that went around on TikTok a lot, and there are still like young men on TikTok being like, do you know what women love? Women love it when you do this. Secrets about what women love. There are so many of those TikToks. It is terrifying.
This might be
especially in like the pickup culture, right? That's where a lot of that comes from.
Somebody
as well.
talk to the kids. What is wrong with the kids? What the fuck? I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. This is like
not the
Hashtag save the
kids' fault.
Zoomers.
The adults are like that too.
Yeah,
ahead.
it's
you're
also
muted.
religion though. Like, it's abstinence culture, it's purity culture. It's the fact that they're not allowed to talk about it with people who have the knowledge. So they talk to each other and they're like, yo, I heard like Sally really likes it when you do this. And then all of a sudden around in that friendship group, they're all like, yeah, we'll all do that. Well, but high five, alpha.
They don't
Like,
even
do you
talk
know-
to each other. They just watch porn and that's it. And they're like, this is real. Like,
Ugh.
straight up, they think that women are exactly like that. Like, you don't have to make some mythical, ethical porn. You just have to include, like, some questions about consent and, like, make it so you don't actually, like, half kill a woman, like, because I've seen some fucked up shit, man. Like, some of it's, like, pretty chill. Some of it's very extreme, and it seems like the porn that I watched when I was a kid is actually a lot less extreme than the porn that is like on the front page of Pornhub all the time. Like, it's so it was actually increasing in severity. And I'm not like anti-porn, I'm not kink shaming, I'm just saying like the algorithm, right? Like all of these other social media platforms are like relying on algorithms, and like Pornhub is making more extreme content because it hits that button harder, right? And it just keeps going in that direction and it sells more ads.
Yeah, it seems to me that there's like really perverse incentives in a lot of pornography to just create content that like is getting those clicks, but might be teaching not so good lessons to people.
Katie, I think. Katie.
I did want to say I'm not anti-porn. Like I think that porn needs to be changed to reflect more healthy relationships. I think that porn needs to be more realistic, which is why I actually think in a lot of ways like OnlyFans is kind of better than like Pornhub. And like the fact that like the person making the content is definitely consenting, is, you know, often trying to portray like aspects of their relationship or either like their relationship if it's like a couple or whatever, but their actual personality is like something that's really different. Like and a lot of like mainstream porn is like super abusive. But that doesn't mean that the concept is bad, but the execution currently is very bad, I would say.
Go ahead, Katie. You had something to say previously?
No, I think everyone is enjoying the porn discussion. I mean, like, so it's fine.
Are
We
you
can
sure?
keep going
You had
about
something
it.
that was pretty interesting.
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay.
I'm good.
And Zealous, you didn't really get a chance to speak much. Want to make room for you.
There's a lot that's been said, and I was gone for a little bit. But to the porn discussion, all I can really think about is how it's being framed that like women have no agency when it comes to, I guess, at least in this context, the porn. And I'm wondering, like, do these women who are in these porns not have the choice to be there, or like and who's stopping women from making their own porn? Like, I'm kind of
Well, I can speak for me here. That's not the kind of agency I was talking about. The agency I was talking about is the way that it is depicted, like how the sex is depicted. So the woman has no agency within the scene, as in she is depicted as the visual object and the man is the actor, right? Where she has the agency to engage in that, not a problem, right? And, you know, she's free to do what she wants. But the depiction of agency is what I mean. Like a woman in a like in a pornographic movie asking for something that she wants rather than like just, you know, him coming on her face.
Yeah, like I would say there's a difference
Or
between
her asking for him to come on her face, because that's what a guy would want to hear. Instead, like, hey, can you spend like 10 more minutes on my clit or no? Okay, good, fine. Just come on my face then. I'm very happy. Okay, whatever.
So I don't. So for me, it's still like, so are you implying that the women there who have made the choice to be there don't agree with how they're partaking in the sex? And
That's not what they're saying. They're talking about, they're basically indicating that people are consuming this content, right? So we understand that any media that you watch, porn included, like does inform people's opinions. When I don't live in the United States, when I watch American movies, I know a lot about American culture from American movies. We don't have lockers in our high schools in Israel, but I know things that happen around like the lockers in school is a huge thing in the United States. And I know that from movies. Nobody told me that. So porn is like that, but with sex, but toxic. And that's what they're talking about. So the porn is depicting this thing, and you have like a 14, 13. I mean, I had friends that started watching porn when they were 8 years old, right? And they're learning about sex, but the sex that they're learning about is not actually sex that would be good probably for a lot of women who would have to participate in something like that. So the criticism isn't about the actual women who are participating in the production. It's more about the messages that think about porn as a movie, and you see a movie and it's like very, very violent. And then it comes up a lot when we talk about movies. You think, is this movie violent because we just enjoy the graphics of it, or does it have an artistic purpose? What is it telling me? What is it doing here? And a lot of porn, its purpose is to like, I mean, in a way, it's like to cater to men and what they like, but it also teaches them what they should like and what they should want, which is what the criticism is.
Or what's
Also, it teaches
appropriate.
women. Yeah, it teaches women as well. Like, how many women do you know that fake orgasms? Because, like, I know that there are a few women out there who absolutely
know
fake
any. I
orgasms
don't know
because
any
of what.
of those.
Of course you don't. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
dude, like I had a conversation today, and I was talking to someone, and I'm like, yeah, I already came. I don't want to come again. I was talking to them, they were a friend, and they're like, what, you don't have multiple orgasms? What, are you a guy? And I'm like, not all women have multiple orgasms, and not all the time. And he like straight up didn't believe me. I was like, Google it, you fucking retard. It's like, Jesus
Sorry,
fucking
you
Christ.
know my body better than I do.
no,
Please mansplain my body.
oh
My
no,
boy
but that,
hormones are like
but if
killing
that-
my orgasms right now. Fuck you,
but
dude.
if that
Seriously.
man has been with like multiple women who have all just been like, oh babe, thank you for my 7th orgasm in this 5-minute period every time. This is the biggest self-report ever. I'm just dying. It's so funny.
Before we entirely lose the topic, I did want to briefly comment and say, although like I understand what Kate's saying, like that the depiction in the porn is actually what we were commenting on, but I would also like to add the comment that I would infer, right, that the power dynamic that's actually present in the porn industry, where women are treated as disposable sex objects by the actual producers on a personal and professional level, not for the fact that they're sex workers, but because there's a stigma attached to that, there's misogyny, there's patriarchy there, and that is actually what is being reflected in the porn, and that they do, like, they may like consent in some sort of way, but like they may like I personally know people who work in the porn industry, like who work in LA, who do have issues with the way that a lot of consent is
Yeah, the ethical
dubious.
production of a lot of porn is questionable. Similar
Yeah.
to how sex work can be done ethically and not ethically, and it can be
Yes.
traumatizing and not traumatizing. So porn is just an extension of that.
Yes, but what I'm saying further is that I would actually say that the two are connected, that by treating women in the industry as individual like porn actresses or whatever, like treating them as objects is then reflected in the porn, in that when they do a scene, like they're not enjoying it most of the time, they're faking it. And instead of having like a real authentic like
The guys are
session or
faking it
whatever.
too, though.
Yeah, no, I agree, but that's the problem, is that like the sex isn't realistic, and then when people learn from that as children, especially, which they shouldn't be, right? And then they go and do that in real life, like it doesn't work out because it's fucking fake, and people like, you know, as an adult, you can have the wherewithal to say like, oh, this makes sense, but like I've personally like gone to work and like people just start choking me because they are like 21 and they think that's okay to just like do to someone because like, oh, woman I'm attracted to, I choke. And it's like, I no, like that's I'm a real person, like you have to have a conversation. This isn't reflected in porn, like in the actual video, and it should be.
I'm gonna go further and say that that lack of agency is a result of just plain old capitalism.
Oh yeah.
There is also, so it is a capitalism thing,
Hold on.
it is a patriarchy thing, and it is also like a whorephobia thing as well. So like the demeaning of like sex workers specifically.
So, is there any accountability for the women partaking in those harmful ideas and concepts of sex? And is it porn naturally objectifying ideas of sex? Like it's a fake setting of sex. Like they're not like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not
If
saying
you have sex with your partner, is that inherently objectifying?
See, I get what she's saying though, Lana, and that was my contention with you as well. I didn't want to go into this because it's kind of like really against the grain on the porn issue. It's like, as far as I'm concerned, if we're not going to start like restricting violent media and like violent shows, I don't see porn. Porn is just an extension of that as far as I'm concerned, right? But I think I get what you're saying, that it is fake. But yeah, it's fake. So it is when we watch a movie and there's a sex scene. They're not actually having sex and they're not actually enjoying it. They're acting. Same with porn. Now, I get that the influences on porn on like real life material harm seems to be a lot more concrete. But it's like, there's value in pointing crappy things out. But I don't think anyone is actually interested or willing to enforce it to any meaningful capacity. So it's kind of like, yes, we can raise awareness, we can point out that things are shitty, but I don't think anyone is actually willing to go the extra mile and be like, maybe we should restrict children, like restrict in more meaningful, reasonable ways from like teenager under a certain age to like watch porn. Or maybe porn should always be like just amateur porn. No fake porn, but I think that's silly and I think no one would go for it, right? So there is an issue. I'm just not sure what material solutions we actually have dealing with it, except for like raising awareness to the issues and hoping that the porn industry would comply, you know?
And I think a big problem with it too is that we exist in an age that is so atomized and individualized. And a lot of people struggle with making connections outside of the internet or just in general. And so I think we see a lot of people reaching for porn and using it as a substitute for those real life relationships. So I think part of it too is maybe helping people to transcend that, or helping people to be less lonely. And then maybe people are less likely to consume porn and to get into these spirals where they're consuming more and more addicting or more and more, extreme pornography.
But it's not just about porn, and I this might be a bit of like a derail, but like just on Twitch, there's like a hot tub swimsuit category thingy. I was shocked. I looked at it like a month ago. I DM'd Prime. I'm like, there's a lady with 3,000 dudes watching her right now in a bra and underwear, and she's not even doing anything. She's just sitting there What is this? People are actually watching this. What is this supposed
She
to
wasn't
be?
just sitting there. She wasn't just sitting there. But she was.
I have researched. I have looked more at more channels. They're just sitting there. No, sorry. They're doing yoga, or they are talking about their job in their bra and underwear. It's like, I'm not shaming. I think anyone can do whatever they want, but I think to just extend this to porn when this is a lot, I don't think. I think it's a lot more. You don't have to go to the most extreme violent forms of like degrading porn to see this like slowly assimilate like everywhere in our lives at this point. But I don't think anyone is actually wanting to do anything substantial about that.
So, I guess we'll end it here. I want to respect everyone's time, everyone's schedules here. But this was a really good conversation. To my audience, we will continue on the conversation as we always do in the open walk-on panel right after this. So stick around. The content does not end. It never ends, unfortunately for me. But fortunately for you, the content never ends. So we will have more individuals, right? An open walk-on panel where you can be a part of it. So if you had a problem with the things that were said, and of course you did, well then, and that'll be the time to air your grievances, okay? All right. So stick around for that. I'm going to give an outro to these amazing individuals, and then we'll continue on from there. But before then, hit that follow button. If you haven't done so yet, if you've been enjoying this content, if you've been loving this content, then hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. We do this 6 nights a week. Don't want you to miss out on any of the content. !social and chat for our social media. We have the Twitters where we tweet. We have Discord where we do everything, including that open walk-on panel. It's going to happen soon, so stick around for that. And then YouTube is where you'll find the VODs. If you've missed any of this, any part of this, then you will find it there on YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe, please, and thank you. All right. We'll start with Zonia. Once again, Zonia. Oh, wow. Thanks for coming through, being a part of this. Zonia is always a very supportive individual, so I was happy to have her here. Thanks for everything.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And I wish I could have engaged better with the second topic, but again, it's just such an alien concept to me, unfortunately. I did what I could. Usually I'm a little better at riffing off of what other people say and kind of just building from sort of an external view, but couldn't quite pull it off this time. But it was really cool listening to you guys talk about it. So I learned a lot of stuff tonight. Thank you for having me on. Really enjoyed it. Chat, really appreciate you guys. And well, you all know who I am, so I'm not going to do much more of an outro. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Pixel, we did it. All right.
I did. You gave me enough notice this time.
No, I gave you like a year and a half notice is what I did.
Yeah.
So, Pixel, though, I am, again, ecstatic that we could actually make this happen. You were lovely, right? It was just great. Like, this is why everyone was like, you got to get Pixel on. I'm like, see, right? I see the magic you bring to bear. So, but I would love to have you on again some other time in the future. Sure. We'll see. All right, I'll mark it down 2024. All right. So Pixel, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. And yeah, I generally cover the news way later at night. And yeah, that's it. If you want to follow me, you can. If not, I might be back one day in another year and a half or so. You know, I'm joking.
Thank you. Next, we have Cyrus, a brand new individual. I was happy we have a bunch of brand new people here. So we're always looking for new voices, including you, Cyrus. I thought you were great. You were fantastic. We need more of you. So, Cyrus.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Tell the world about yourself.
I'm pretty new here on Twitch. I'm in the middle of moving right now, and like things are a mess for me, so that's why my internet went down. I talk politics. I'm really interested in this stuff. I will probably be doing like more yelling because that's apparently like my natural inclination is I just yell at my computer screen when I see other like Twitch. Frankly, when I see Twitch streamers do something stupid, I yell a lot. So follow me for that if you want to see that. If you just want to like chill.
Hey, and I gotta say, like, I'm like super jealous that your view is amazing. I'm looking at that window.
It's sick. It's so sick, but you know what's sad? I'm leaving tomorrow.
Oh, this is the place you're leaving. Oh, never.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah. My next place will be like less impressive, but
Oh, all right.
still chill.
Yeah. All right. Well, bye, Cincinnati. Thanks so much for that. Okay, we have April. April, thank you for coming through. Right. We needed a final slot filled. Right. I'm like, I know who to call. Right?
It'd be the last draft pick, Prime.
Oh,
Feels good. Next time, get me first draft with the big guys so I can leech clout off of them.
gotcha.
That'd be
Well,
great.
you gotta refuse me for a year and a half, and then you'll be my first pick.
Okay, yeah. I've got to like nag you into bringing me onto the big panels.
I'm like
yeah.
fighting for them.
Follow me, Taftaj, on Twitter, on Twitch. I do all sorts of political discussions, talk to people about all sorts of different things. So yeah, good stuff.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we're skipping you for a second. Shay, thanks for being around. Again, brand new individual. Love to see it, right? We're always looking for new people. And yeah, thank you for bringing your perspective on all this.
Yeah, awesome. I really had a lot of fun. It was my first like debate panel, so I was all like, okay. And I really enjoyed everyone's views. You can tell that we're all people who've come from like very different walks of life, and I don't know, it's just really cool. And don't watch porn, kids. But
Okay. A message that needs to be heard by the masses. Thanks so much. Okay. We'll go to Zealous. Zealous, I'm always happy to have you around. You had you around the one time, and Zealous specifically asked for a female space, right? And they don't really exist like that on Twitch politics. Certainly there's some, like, you'll find eventually, like when you're scrolling through just chatting, you'll find like, hey, let's gather all the e-girls for a thing, but like there's like none with people, at least that I'm aware of, talking about issues like this. So we're glad that we could provide you that space. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. The first night I was here, it was a little rough, but I had fun. It was my first night streaming as well. I've only streamed a few times since then, and I don't know, it's a lot of fun though. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. All right. Next, Lana. Lana, you got a bit more bombastic there at the end. I want to engage with you more, actually, because I think we could have a really interesting conversation.
I think we'd have a lot of interesting conversations.
Yes, which is another reason why I need to invite you back in the future. I'm going to send friend requests to all of you. If you don't have, if we're not already friends, then I'm going to send a friend request, FYI. But Lana, who is not shy about like her persona, right? You're not quite meek there with that username. But Lana, thank you for coming through.
Thank you for having me. I actually really enjoyed talking with all of you. I'm like really interested in like hearing from all of you again. If any of you, I'll probably send most of you friend requests if you guys are interested. I'd like to talk with you guys more again. I think this was really cool, and I wanted to thank Kate for inviting me, and I wanted to thank Prime for hosting. So cool.
And I want to thank Katie for inviting all these people. Right? Katie was on top of it. Once again, this. I would only just be getting started streaming today. Today, I usually don't have a closed panel, right? I'd just be rolling out of bed, turning on this goddamn camera, and putting on something, right? But Katie demanded it, and so she helped make this happen. So I thank Katie for using her dominant side. Oh, most women are submissive. You haven't met Katie. Katie, thank you so much for this. Like this is all you. So I just want to make sure everyone knows, and you get that kind of credit.
Yeah, Sonia, about what you said, I would be super interested eventually us getting on an Amazon Lily maybe, or just another panel and just talk about how weird it is to talk to normies about sex. I think you and I had a similar discussion like that before, and yeah, I have a lot to say about that too. So I can play normie, but I can also, like, I think you and I have more in common probably than me and most other people on this panel. So there's that to it.
I remember that
proof
conversation.
I am proof that most women are subs because I subbed Prime into making this panel, and and Cyrus, I did not hear you yell. I would love to hear that. I'm sure Lana can.
Yeah, I
save
haven't
you.
broken it out yet. I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, so you should do that. Also, shout out to Lana. It used to be Lana the Goddess. I like that more actually, because God is the fucking loser. You know, goddesses is where it's at. So that's my outro.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, we are going to continue on with our open walk-on panel right after this. Anyone here can join us. We love it if you did. And again, I just gotta thank all of you for taking time out of your days. It was really nice. Especially since some of you are in wild time zones, so it's a little harder for you. But seriously, it means a lot. So that we could pull this off. This is a difficult thing to do, actually. But yeah, you can join us in our next panel. If not, that's okay. Thanks for spending your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion with my community. I know they appreciate you so much as I do. Have a good one. Bye.